Hey gang, the story I'm about to tell you today is about a man named Commodore Perry Owens. He was a lawman, he was a gunfighter, and we're going to go back to the year 1886 when Commodore Perry Owens was elected sheriff of Apache County. Now, Apache County here in Arizona back then covered a huge area, almost 22,000 square miles. I was coming back from Wisconsin here to Arizona for the season, and I saw coming down about 100 miles maybe outside of Flagstaff, coming westbound, and I look to my right and I see a sign. It says Holbrook. I'm like, Holbrook? That's where this whole thing happened. This is the location where there was a famous gunfight, and Commodore Perry Owens really became famous at that point. So if we go back to the 1880s, there was a war, a feud going on here. The whole area was up in arms and shootings and murders. It was called the Pleasant Valley Conflict, the Pleasant Valley War, and it was basically a cattleman's war. Sheep herders, you know, the old story. A lot of people were killed. And it went on for a long time. There were two families. One family was the Grahams, and the other family was the Tewksburys. The Tewksburys were really here first. They were friends with the Grahams, and they were all cattle ranchers at the time, and they were doing well, and then the Tewksburys got into sheep herding, and there's always a conflict between the two because the cattle they graze and they don't eat down to the stubble, so it grows back, and the sheep, when they eat it all, and they destroy the land. So there was always a conflict between the two factions, and it wasn't just here. But the Grahams got aggressive, and it turned into a war, and it spread out, and some brutal things happened. The perpetrator that we're going to talk about, his name was Andy Blevins, part of the Blevins family, infamous family from Texas. Now, Andy went by the name Andy Cooper, alias Y, and in Holbrook. He came from Texas to escape murder charges, and a lot of bad things that he did there, so he came here, and eventually the younger brothers and the mother and everybody came along, and they were living in Holbrook. The word started getting around because he started bragging that he killed a couple of the Tewksburys. I mean, there's one of the brutal stories of the Tewksburys and the Grahams was the ambush of John Tewksbury, and I won't go into the story other than to say that the gunmen that killed them outside their cabin stayed there and let the pigs come and eat the bodies while the wife was pinned down. The kids would not let them come out to retrieve the bodies and watch the pigs eat them. Can you imagine that? So it was pretty bad. Blevins, I believe, is the one who pulled the trigger and did that job. So Blevins was a pretty bad guy, and Commodore Perry Owens was tasked with making the arrest. He had just a short time before, they took the Ike Clanton gang out, not him personally. He had two deputies go out, and there was a gunfight, and Ike Clanton was finally taken down. He, of course, left the Tombstone area, came up to this area, and was wreaking havoc with the gang, doing the same old thing, rustling and murders. So Commodore Perry Owens, people were saying, I don't know if you're afraid. It's been a year since you've been sheriff. It's September. Why aren't you arresting this Blevins guy? He's at the top of our list. Some thought he was afraid, and some thought that he was actually friends with Blevins. It is true, possibly. They were cowboys together in the younger days, and Perry Owens, boy, in his younger days, he rode with some rustlers and said in his memoirs he did some bad things. Well, he turned out to be a gunfighter from those days, and he was ambidextrous. He could shoot from both hands. He could hit the can like you see in the movies, but really do it. Sharpshooter with a rifle. And I got to tell you, when I first saw his picture, with the hat and the long hair looking like Bill Cody, he had the buffalo gun, pistol, cartridge belt, the whole getup. And I'm like, oh, brother, this guy like stage actor or what? And I come to find out, no, this guy's the real thing. And he really went with those guns on his missions. And on this mission, he came to Holbrook to finally arrest Andy Blevins. Now, it was September 4th. He comes into town. He doesn't go right up to the cottage. He hangs back. He takes his time. And the one thing I'll say about Commodore Perry Owens is I can compare him in a way to Wyatt Earp. Very deliberate men. And it was very important in those days when you're going after the rabble and unpredictable situations. You've got to have a plan in mind. You can't just wait for the moment to happen. You have to be very aggressive and deliberate. He was approaching the house finally after he got his weapons ready, and he took a breath. He was ready to go. He knew what he was going to do, probably have to do, and he was prepared for it. He sees Andy Blevins as he comes down the road out in front of the cottage. He's saddling his horse. Horse is tied to a tree. It turns out there were 12 family members there at the cottage. The mother, the younger son, babies, family, friends, brothers, older brothers. There was a whole bunch of them in this little tiny cottage, and we're going to go see that cottage. So he comes up, and Andy sees him, and Andy turns around and quickly shuttles back into the cottage. So you got to imagine Commodore Perry Owens is like, well, this is not going to be easy. So he was ready. Walked up to the door. He knocked on the front door. It was Andy who answered the door, opened it a crack, and Commodore Perry Owens could look down. He could see the gun in his hands. He said, I'm coming to take you in. Not surprisingly, Andy Blevins says, in so many words, you're not taking me in, and he starts to close the door. And this is where the deliberate action comes in, the pre-planned, not fooling around. Commodore Perry Owens takes 2 steps back, and as he does so, he pulls up his Winchester to his waist, and he fires right through the center of the door where he thinks Andy is standing. Sure enough, Andy is standing right there, hits him in the gut, takes him right out. Almost at the same time, there's an adjacent door, and out through the door comes another shot. Turned out it was Andy's half-brother, John. Perry Owens spins around, and as the bullet passes him, it hits the horse, kills the horse. Perry Owens shoots back. He returns fire and hits him in the arm, taking him out of the fight. Next thing you know, as he's stepping backwards, trying to assess what next is going to come out of this cottage, gets a perspective of a guy jumping out of the window. It was one of the house boarders and friends. His name was Mose Roberts. He was armed. He came out the window, but he turned to run. But in the moment, Commodore Perry Owens shot him, and he shot him in the back, and they would say, oh, what a coward. Of course, like the Clantons versus the Earp Party, 2 sides of the story. Turned out he was holding a gun. He had a gun in his hands. Of course, that gun would disappear, but there were witnesses. Shoots him in the back, takes him out. Now he steps back, and things seem to be settling down. But no, it's not over yet. Out through the front door comes young 15-year-old brother of Andy and John. His name's Sam Houston Blevins, and the kid is completely emotional. He grabbed Andy's gun. He had gotten a second shot to the hip. Perry Owens had, in the melee, as he was stepping back, saw him on the floor, gave him a shot to the hip, so he was pretty much dead. The boy comes out with the mother is screaming and holding him, literally pulling him back. No, Mom, no. And you have to imagine Commodore Perry Owens is standing back. He's ready, and he's like, please don't. I don't want to have to kill this kid. And kid comes out screaming, crying, pointing the gun, raising the gun, and with that, no surprise, Commodore Perry Owens shoots him square in the chest, and the whole thing happened in less than 60 seconds. You've got to just imagine this guy, aggressive. In the moment he shoots Mose Roberts, you can't really blame him going back to this shooting in the back. It's like Wild Bill Hickok. Remember the story where he had just had that gunfight and his deputy came running up out of the crowd, and you think someone's coming and you're just reacting. So maybe in retrospect he wouldn't have shot Mose Roberts. We'll never know. But sad that he had to shoot the boy. The whole affair was very quick. So what we're going to do is we're going to leave here. I've got about a 3.5 hour drive. Let's go see this cottage. It's a beautiful day here in Arizona. We'll do a road trip. I don't know if we can get inside. I tried to call. There's no phone number, but it is listed as a historic place. So at the very least, hopefully I can get some footage for you outside. I really want to see where this happened, and it all kind of sparked from seeing that Holbrook sign. I had that live stream last year. We went to Perry Owens' grave, and I said, someday I want to go to Holbrook. Well, today's the day. So come on along. Let's go. All right, we're in Holbrook, Arizona, gang. And we are at the location by the train tracks of the Blevins house. Yeah, it's still here. Almost as it was. There it is. Now you would never know this is the Blevins house walking by here, but from comparing to the old picture from here to here, that looks like an add-on. The original house was really these two windows with the sign, and here's the infamous porch where it happened. And I went and knocked on the door. Nobody's home. I think this is probably a museum, but what is interesting is that this was extensively added onto. So if we just go, you can see from the roof line, this was the original cottage right here up until that point, and then this is all added on. But this is what I wanted to see. I mean, here's where it happened. Try to imagine, right? Commodore Perry Owens walking up to this door. This is the door, right? Looks like the train might be getting ready to depart. But I wanted to just imagine, he probably came from down there. There's the old railroad station there. Of course, these tracks were here. They had to be here in those days. The railroad came through here. This is how this town came to be located here. It was all the railroads, but he would have been, Perry Owens would have been probably, you know, if he came in by train or, no, he rode in. Probably came from there, and there used to be trees here, 2 trees in front, and I'm guessing that maybe right here there was the tree that the horse, Andy's horse was, Andy Blevins, aka Andy Cooper, and Commodore Perry Owens walked up right here as we're standing here, and probably came up like this and probably stood right here, and he knocked on the door, and Andy opened the door. Probably opened it a crack. He saw the gun, right? Closed the door back up, took 2 steps back, and blammo, right through the door, right into Andy's stomach, Andy Blevins. Now, I'm not the expert, but I'm guessing that might be this window where half-brother John maybe stuck his handgun around and shot. And somewhere over here, the horse was hit. So if we're Perry Owens, just after that shot, you're gonna spin around, bam, you shoot him in the shoulder, in the arm, and then I'm guessing he started doing this, right? backing off what's going on. Now, natural reaction for me is to walk this way, and would that have been the window where Mose Roberts ran out and started running away, where Perry Owens shot him? Or could have been over there, but it seems to me if the door's oriented that way and you're kind of trying to manage what's going on here, you're going to go to this side. But if any of you know, I'd be interested to know. And then he came back here, right? And as he stood here, Sam Houston Blevins came out straight at him, pointing the gun, and Perry Owens killed him. Yeah, so here it is. I'm sure this is not the original door, because it would have a big bullet hole in it. But yeah, I'm sure these are the original windows. Interestingly, they go all the way, maybe 12 inches off the slab, off the sidewalk here. But these columns here, these little bitty columns, these are the same, you know, as I look closely, and it matches up. This is all original. Look how low the ceiling is. Of course, that light was added. Very interesting. Yeah, look how low those windows are. So Mose Roberts had to have jumped out maybe this window here. Yeah. So this would be where, somewhere here. Actually, it'd probably be that window, because I believe, well, it's hard to say. Looks like architecturally that's where the building originally stopped, but yeah, see that roof line up there? It's a little to the left. So there might have been a little section of flat roof. But anyway, it's neat to see the original structure here in Holbrook. It's a small little place. All right, let's go to the cemetery and see if we can find their graves. Holbrook Cemetery. Some very interesting old graves here. Look at this. Handmade, it looks like. Isaac Cynthia Johnson, 1909, 1916. It's an interesting cover. Love these old pioneer type cemeteries. William Jervis, no date. Mary Jervis over there. There's an unnamed person. Look at the old cross. Christine Yellowhair. 1-year-old kids. This used to be called Navajo Springs, Holbrook. Look at this, W.F. Beasley, 1863 to 1935. It looks like some petrified wood here. And there is the petrified forest, I believe, south of here towards Sholo. Look at that. Beautiful, huh? Encased in concrete. Artistic talents. This looks like a couple of real old ones here. Yeah, 1948, the baby Armando. There's another baby. Lots of kids. There were lots of diseases and no remedy before the antibiotics came along. We're so spoiled, guys, with modern medicine. Why did so many kids die? Well, they didn't have penicillin and all the other good stuff we have today. Just take a Z-Pack and you're cured. Well, their graves are over here. Right over here. Look at these. Old-fashioned tomb markers. I can't say tombstones because they're made of wood. 1866 to 1939. Kind of reminds me of Boot Hill and Tombstone. All right, this kind of look. Well, that brings us to the grave of three men here. One just a boy. Yep, Andy Cooper, right on top. Andy Cooper, Sam Houston Blevins, and Mose Roberts. In memory of the Blevins who died in the shootout 4 September 1887. Yeah, they're here. And oh look, they have the whole explanation with pictures. Yeah, with John Blevins, that's the picture I showed you of him. The one picture. And Andy Cooper. So yeah, I've shown a picture of the house. You can see the trees. And that's what I was guessing. This tree to the right here would be the tree that maybe the horse was tied up to, where Owens, or the shot came from probably this left window, and you know, he was aiming that way probably, if that's the way it went down. Oh, look at that. So that's what it looked like. This is what it looked like back in those days, guys. Let's see if we can get an angle here. So it says the Blevins cottage was just this way. So looking that way, there's the tracks. So this would be looking westbound, I believe. Yeah. Some pictures of what it looked like back in those days, guys. Here's the old livery stable. Pioneer days. Well, they really take care of this place. There's some really interesting graves to read. So look at this. So Mary Blevins is here. Let's read some of these. This is Labe, 1883 to 1939. It says, this Texas cowboy had a wooden leg due to an accident and amputation. He was murdered in Jameson Ranch bunkhouse. Interesting. The killer was never named. Laid to rest. Mary Blevins. Is that the mother, or yeah? whose husband and 4 sons died violently 6 weeks in 1887. Within 6 weeks, she died in 1911 here at 66, grief-stricken to the end. She was loved by everyone. Yeah, just imagine her pulling poor Sam Houston, who was caught up in the emotion of the moment, going down with his brother. George Smiley was hung. This way to say it was hanged, proper way, on January 8th, 1900 in the courthouse yard for a murder, the only legal execution in Navajo County. He's buried in the Holbrook Cemetery. Actual site unknown. And this is kind of a general remembrance. Of course, the Spanish flu. Fall of 1918. Central School was made into a hospital. 26 deaths. Reservations were also hit bad. Yeah. Well, an interesting little corner here of the cemetery. Historic. Did a nice job. Well, there you have it, gang. There's the grave of one infamous guy, Andy Cooper. And Sam and Mose got caught up in it. They weren't all good, but boy, oh boy. Sad day here in Holbrook. All right, gang. Hope you enjoyed it. It was fun coming here. And I look forward to seeing you on the next adventure. See you later.